Six Flags New Orleans was once a bustling amusement park, a beacon of entertainment, and source of joy for an entire community. But if you've seen it nowadays, it's derelict and abandoned. You see, in 2005, Hurricane Katrina struck with devastating force, submerging the park under 5 feet of water and leaving a trail of absolute destruction. These images of flooded roller coasters and buildings became symbols of the time when tragedy befell the entire city. Entire families were displaced, and the lives of thousands were changed forever. This is the story of Six Flags New Orleans. I'm your host, Ryan Socash, and you're watching It's History. The origins of Six Flags New Orleans, initially known as Jazzland, are deeply rooted in the spirit and culture of New Orleans, in a time when the city was on the rise. In the early 1990s, New Orleans, famous for its music, culture, and festivals, sought to expand its tourist appeal by adding an amusement park to capture that essence. The goal was to create an amusement park that would attract tourists from across the country and be a source of pride and enjoyment for local residents. Then, the idea of Jazzland emerged, conceived as a tribute to New Orleans' deep connection to jazz. To understand this, we need to go back to a difficult time, 17th century Louisiana and the regional influence by New Orleans. At that time, large transports of slaves from West Africa arrived and were brought in to work on sugar plantations, cotton, and other crops, as well as various domestic and urban tasks. And in some ways, as time passed, African heritage with its rhythms and musical traditions merged with the European and Caribbean influences presented in New Orleans. Several years later, in the city's poorest neighborhoods, African American musicians who had inherited the musical traditions of their ancestors mixed with white musicians who brought the influence of European classical music and American folk, creating something that would change the artistic world forever. This cultural and musical exchange was essential in the birth of jazz. New Orleans became the cradle of jazz with its unique blend of cultures. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the first jazz styles such as Dixieland, ragtime, and blues emerged. These styles became popular in the city's clubs, cabarets, and streets, before eventually spreading across the entire country. In other words, jazz became a symbol of cultural richness and a tool for social change. The project's promoters, led by Alpha Smart Parks, a company specializing in amusement parks, saw a unique opportunity to attract tourists and provide a new source of entertainment for locals. Initial planning included selecting suitable land in the eastern area of New Orleans. This location offered ample space for development and was well connected, as the 140 acres were located at the intersection of I-10 as well as I-510, facilitating visitor transportation. However, from the start, the location also presented challenges, especially regarding infrastructure and flood protection, due to New Orleans' vulnerability to hurricanes and tropical storms. Even so, they moved ahead with construction. The thematic design of Jazzland was an integral part to the project. The park was to be divided into several themed areas, each representing a unique aspect of local heritage. The themes included were as followed. Main Street, which was inspired by the famous French Quarter of New Orleans. This area served as a main entrance to the park and featured cobblestone streets, wrought iron balconies, and shops offering souvenirs and local products. Then there was Cajun Country, a section celebrating Louisiana's Cajun culture with attractions and shows highlighting music, food, and traditions. Pontchartrain Beach was named after a historic beach and amusement park in New Orleans, offering water attractions and carnival games, recreating that special atmosphere of a coastal getaway. Pirates Cove was a pirate-themed area with thrilling attractions, games, and shows that transported visitors to the era of the Gulf Coast pirates. And of course, there was an area inspired by New Orleans' famous Mardi Gras festival. This area featured parades, floats, and live entertainment, capturing the energy and festival spirit of celebration year-round. And there were also the rides, of course, such as Megazeph, the roller coaster that was designed and named as a tribute to the historic Zephyr of Pontchartrain Beach. Built with a combination of wood and steel, this attraction symbolized the blend of innovation that characterized Jazzland. Construction began in 1998 and faced several challenges. As mentioned earlier, given New Orleans' vulnerability to weather complications, developers had to extensively prepare the land to implement flood control, ensuring the park's safety and stability. Additionally, coordinating construction of multiple attractions and themed areas was a complicated task, requiring meticulous planning and execution. Despite these challenges, the construction of Jazzland progressed successfully, and the park opened its doors to the public in May of 2000. It debuted with 30 attractions, shows, food venues, and live music. During peak season, it generated around 100 full-time and approximately 1,000 part-time jobs. According to Steve Richard, director of the Mississippi Gulf Coast Convention and Visitors Bureau, Jazzland's proximity enhanced the entire region's attractions, similar to how visitors in Los Angeles might go to multiple destinations like Disneyland and the San Diego Zoo. Hence, Jazzland was a very fruitful addition to the city, so much so that in an interview with Sun Herald, the executive director of New Orleans' East Economic Foundation said, quote, "We want the people in nearby areas to feel like this is a place they can be happy to come to." However, despite its years of success, the park faced challenges and economic issues. Competition from other theme parks and regional tourist attractions forced Jazzland to constantly innovate and improve. It was never-ending. Jazzland had to adapt to changing market trends and visitor expectations by constantly investing in new attractions and enhancing the existing ones, leading to financial difficulties and massive amounts of debt. In fact, despite appearances, by 2002, Jazzland was bankrupt and unable to meet its financial obligations, such as loan payments and other commitments. Consequently, the city had to assume part of the financial burden to prevent the park's complete closure. In that same year, a globally recognized company in theme parks named Six Flags acquired Jazzland and allocated over $20 million for its enhancement. Under its management, the park was renamed Six Flags New Orleans. New attractions, including more roller coasters and themed areas, were added, and existing infrastructure was improved. These new attractions became the park's main draws. You had classics like Batman the Ride, which was an exhilarating inverted roller coaster, or Jester's Wild Ride, a family-friendly coaster suitable for visitors of all ages, and of course SS Black Pearl, which was a swinging pirate ship of sorts. Additionally, Six Flags invested more in marketing and promotion, increasing the park's visibility and appeal nationwide, becoming a pillar of special events and themed festivals. One of the most anticipated events was Fright Fest, an annual Halloween festival that drew crowds from all over. During this event, the park transformed into a world of terror and mystery, with haunted houses, spooky shows, and costumed actors roaming throughout. Thanks to this new investment, the park was on the path to recovery, offering hope for its future. However, its prosperity was threatened by an unexpected and completely catastrophic event, Hurricane Katrina. As you might recall, from back in 2005, this storm loomed, and it would not only alter the fate of Six Flags, but New Orleans as an entire city. It all started on August the 23rd, 2005, when a tropical depression in the Atlantic quickly developed into a tropical storm, Katrina. Within days, Katrina intensified, reaching a Category 5. Accordingly, officials issued a warning, noting that the hurricane could have catastrophic effects. On August the 29th, Katrina landed on the Louisiana coast as a Category 3 hurricane, with sustained winds of up to 205 kilometers per hour. New Orleans, a city already facing challenges with its levee system and canals, was the heart of the storm, the disaster's epicenter. The hurricane caused breaches in the city's levees, leading to massive flooding. Approximately 80% of New Orleans was submerged, and tens of thousands of residents were forced to evacuate. Critical infrastructure was severely damaged, including roads, bridges, and communication systems. In the end, the magnitude of devastation left New Orleans paralyzed. The thousands of people seeking shelter at the Superdome were trapped. The initial emergency response was chaotic and, in many cases, inadequate. Now, obviously, Six Flags, which was located in the city's eastern part, was not immune to the fury of the storm. The park, which was prepared to temporarily close during hurricane season, had not anticipated this level of destruction. Floodwaters from breached levees engulfed the park with several meters of water. Attractions, buildings, and park infrastructure were submerged, causing irreparable damage. Coasters like the iconic Mega Zephyr and other attractions were devastated. Some structures even collapsed, and others quickly rusted and just deteriorated. And it didn't take long for images of this theme park, submerged in water, to become icons of the event. Park buildings, including restaurants, shops, and administrative areas, were filled with water and mud, destroying equipment, documents, and furniture. Electrical and mechanical infrastructure was also completely ruined, with the landscaping that once beautified the park completely trashed. In other words, what was once a lush and vibrant oasis became a swamp of debris and dead vegetation. But the loss of plants didn't only hurt aesthetics. You see, that loss of vegetation led to accelerated soil erosion and terrain instability, creating new challenges for any future cleanup or restoration. The devastation also significantly impacted local wildlife, as animals that once inhabited the park's surroundings were now displaced or died. The devastation was such that the repair and the restoration costs were deemed too high, and the park could not reopen. Following the hurricane, Six Flags was expected to suffer losses in the third quarter due to the damages in New Orleans, implying an overall $3 million drop in quarterly revenues. Remember, Six Flags has many other theme parks, and so this is actually a pretty small piece of the puzzle. However, upon closer investigation, it turned out that things were far more complicated, as noted by Prudential Equity. Reading, quote, "Many of the costs associated with the New Orleans park are fixed, as the company leases land on a long-term basis and will continue to incur rent expense, along with employee benefits and compensation," meaning the company had not yet been able to assess the damages to the park fully and continue to incur fixed expenses month after month. This raised many questions about the future of Six Flags New Orleans, and with the park now indefinitely closed and no clear rehabilitation plan, it quickly transformed into an abandoned mess. This abandonment attracted vandals and urban explorers who took advantage of the lack of security to enter the park and caused further damage. Many structures were graffitied, windows broken, and equipment stolen or just destroyed. Then, after the waters receded, assessment teams and engineers from Six Flags entered the park to determine the extent of the damage. Reports concluded that the attractions and facilities were beyond repair. Therefore, in 2009, the city of New Orleans and Six Flags agreed that the park would not be restored. Six Flags officially closed the park, and the land was just left to rot. This was the end. The reality of the devastation was a harsh blow, not only to the park's owners and employees, but also to an entire local community. Six Flags New Orleans had been a significant source of entertainment, employment, and pride for the region. These economic impacts were also significant. The loss of tourism revenue and the elimination of jobs contributed to the financial difficulties of a city that was already struggling to recover from the catastrophe, with former park employees now sharing their heartbreaking stories about the hurricane's impact on their life and workplace, frequently remembering it as a second home where they had built their careers and forged lasting friendships. Believe it or not, there have been multiple attempts to revitalize and recover the park, with all parties wishing to bring back tourism and jobs. However, like I said before, Six Flags determined that the rehabilitation costs were unsustainable and decided not to invest in reconstruction. Hence, in 2009, both parties agreed to terminate the lease agreement and the property was returned to the city, marking the official end to Six Flags New Orleans. And with the property back in the city's hands, several redevelopment proposals emerged. Different developers presented plans to transform the site into various facilities, including shopping centers, entertainment complexes, or renewed theme parks. But despite these proposals, there have been significant challenges in finding necessary funding for the redevelopment. The cost of clearing and rehabbing the land were so high that even the biggest investors and capital groups were unwilling to take part in this ambitious project. And locals didn't sit idly. You see, volunteers and community organizations have participated in cleanup efforts, removing debris, graffiti, and excessive vegetation. While these efforts did not solve all the problems, they were important steps towards general recovery. In 2021, the city called for proposals to revitalize the former Six Flags Park site. One of the selected proposals was from Bayou Phoenix. This strategic investment in the site aims to bring a forgotten area back to active economic life and transform it into a thriving community hub. In 2021, after a meticulous selection process that included 3 rounds of evaluations, Bayou Phoenix LLC was selected as the master developer. This plan encompasses comprehensive development, including a sports complex, an indoor and outdoor water park, a family entertainment center, a film and production studio, and the renovation of the Eastover Country Club and its golf course. The Bayou Phoenix team has already concluded technical and financial feasibility studies, and in 2023, they signed a redevelopment agreement with the New Orleans Redevelopment Authority. According to BayouPhoenix.com, the project will provide amenities for families, residents, and visitors, and generate over 1,000 jobs, which finally will bring back the economic prosperity to East New Orleans. Let's just hope that if those efforts are successful, another hurricane won't wreck New Orleans all over again. We'll leave it there for today, but thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm Ryan Socash, signing off.